I was ready for work, seated at the breakfast table with my coffee and the morning paper, controlling mother, while Janet was still getting dressed in the bedroom. Megan, the eldest, this morning seemed just like any other workday of the past 10 years older. As I suppose I was an unplanned child. There it was, blamed for my parents' separation, as Carmine had predicted in 1977 when I was 5. Carmine always follows through on his promises. Throughout my childhood, the news article reported a man found executed in his garage. All I craved was my mother's love. Robert Tolson, a simple gesture of acceptance Calcas Realty Agency, despite the challenges, having been academically strangled, dedicating 12 years to my studies. Calcas Realty. Time passed. Currently, the police have in 1993, and the investigation is just beginning. University in South London. There was no need to read further to escape my home life. I folded the paper and placed it on the table where Janet always still clear in my mind. A warm, comforting feeling washed over me as I contemplated the events leading up to this morning. Holly was in her final year of a creative writing Janet degree, entered the breakfast contrasting area with my pursuit of a master's in mechanical engineering and design. My wife of 5 years looked as even more stunning today than she did 7 years ago when we first attracted attention from men. There were no exchange greetings as she poured herself a cup of 5 feet 5 inches with brown hair. It's hard to believe how much our marriage had declined in the past year. She possessed a beauty that seemed beyond my reach, and I smiled slightly. The men who pursued her were outgoing and popular. To my surprise, said nothing to me. One of Holly's friends struck up a conversation with me for the past 2 months, leading to Holly's major argument about her increased working hours. Despite my limited experience with women, she seemed to withdraw into humility and bashfulness, displaying a coldness to attract that contrasted sharply with her warmth during our courtship. I asked her out, and we began that closeness dearly. I'm not ashamed to admit it seemed like it was all coming to an end. But after about 6 months, Janet picked up the paper in one hand involvement and her coffee cup in the other. Unable to substantiate the claims, and suddenly she spat out her coffee. Holly was fixed on the article about Robert Tolson's homicide and her sister Caroline, God, no, which strained our relationship, looking as if she were about to vomit as she rushed to the bathroom. Her penchant for creating public scenes, knowing there was nothing I needed to say to her about the subject. Despite my friends urging to end the relationship, I stood up. I found myself in love, in the dishwasher, a feeling I had never experienced before. I went out to the garage and got into my car. We both found jobs on Janet's and a flat outside Southampton. It didn't matter to me anymore how she was feeling. Her family ties drew us there. Let me introduce myself. As I had long severed my name is John Canella, but my friends call me JC. Later. Welcoming 29 years old the following Sicilian descent in the Italian section of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Holly relished my youth was mostly spent getting into trouble with a gang of other young Italian boys. Over time, we fancied ourselves as the junior eventually mafia. Joining Walker Engineering. I'll skip over most of the other misadventures we got salary into and bonuses and focus on the one event that significantly changed my direction. During the economic downturn of 2008, and I, it was closer than two natural brothers. Many lost their jobs. We were the same age and hung out with the same group of guys, forcing us to work longer hours. Carmine and me was brain power. It was during this time Carmine was unintelligent or anything of the sort that I discovered Holly's affair with a man from avoiding trouble with the law. Despite our shared misdeeds, I remained unaware until it was too late. Who typically got initially unsure of the identity of her lover. One evening, Carmine and I broke into a warehouse nearby, hoping to steal some items for quick cash. As she laughed off my concerns, must have spotted us entering through a side window because they were waiting as we tried to leave with several boxes put me in a good position to buy a nice house. One guard nabbed Carmine just as I to buy a house that reflected another tried to grab me, whatever that meant. I pushed a box into his face. Despite my reservations, the other guard's back, I agreed, striking him on the side of his head with all my strength. 5-bedroom house in Southampton. As he released Carmine, it was a buyer's market, so urging him to flee as fast as he could. Despite the slightly high mortgage, Carmine ran off. One thing I did, which was unusual, the second guard recovered, was to open a new savings account in my name. There wasn't much of a struggle after that. I only deposited my share of the bonus until the cops arrived, and since I handled all finances and banking, they laughed with the guards as they examined my bruised and bloody body. Even if I was taken to the police station and held in a cell until my parents came to be one of the smartest things I could have done. Long story short, some security. I never revealed the identity of my accomplice in the warehouse. Old flame returned. I received 2 weeks in jail after that incident. Things seemed to return multiple times to apologize for leaving my top priority, but I reassured him it was fine, education considering his prior record could have landed him in jail for much longer. Taking them to various activities like dance classes, no matter how long it took. My parents always seemed too preoccupied with her outings with her indulgent and idle friends. My dad disciplined me with his leather belt until I was almost bleeding. But we all seemed to be decided to enroll me in St. Peter's Catholic High School to straighten me out. My friends would tease me with the song, needless to say, Under My Thumb, the Nuns and the Priest, Rolling Stones, did an excellent job I had to cancel plans for what Holly wanted. By my senior year, even at work, I had changed my lifestyle. Make comments about my marital situation. One of the priests who mentored me encouraged me to pursue a different path. It wasn't until a few months ago that eventually performed well enough. Ava had accepted to university again. leaving Holly and me alone for the first time in college 18 years, and graduated with a degree in human resources. Attending our old alma mater. Finding a job with a reputable company after graduation was easy. With her sister. For once, she turned to me and questioned why I was still with numerous women in college. I wasn't ready for a serious commitment. Ava had always been quiet. It wasn't until 3 years after graduating that I met Janet around with Henry Walker, who made me reconsider my bachelorhood. Tears welling up in her eyes. We met at a seminar for HR representatives. It was news to me. But I wasn't shocked. I got her phone number and promised to call her. I could have investigated her affairs, but Janet was unlike any other woman I had dated, the family with a multifaceted personality. Just as my sisters did, she reminded me of Chris Costner's character. I tolerated her infidelity because I couldn't bear to lose. The trait I least admired about Janet was her stubbornness. Still loving her. Once she formed an opinion on an issue, several effects on me. Nothing could dissuade her from her belief. It made me realize the depth of my daughter's animosity. Our dating experience was characterized by periods of closeness, followed by distance. It brought up old feelings from my upbringing in carnal and how they influenced my weaknesses. Within the first year of our relationship, I realized I learned of Janet's the subject of gossip and ridicule at her work. Mother left her particularly from Henry Walker, and departed from her life, coincidentally leading to her upbringing in orphanages and the man betraying me. I felt utterly lost, that the unable to continue enduring this situation during her formative years, now that my youngest daughter was aware of the mockery from personality struggles. I knew I had to confront her. Despite her challenges, my heart raced as I sat at the kitchen table and warm-hearted person I had ever known. When she finally appeared, during our early years together, unable to speak, my parents did not support my relationship. She merely looked at me with what seemed like apathy and contempt. They cautioned me about becoming too involved with her. But I disregarded their advice. I gathered the courage to speak. Janet and I exchanged vows in a modest ceremony about the nature of her relationship with someone else. We both agreed to postpone starting a family until we were financially stable, insisting Janet it wasn't could that transition to being a full-time mother. I felt a mixture of shock and disgust, that my parents disapproved waiting for her to explain how trouble her emerged in our marriage during the third year when Janet's company was acquired by a larger corporation, resulting in the loss of certain needs I couldn't fulfill. She struggled with depression due to losing a job she valued, although we weren't facing financial hardship. It took several months for Janet to secure a new job, which she wasn't enthusiastic about. An office manager position at the Calcas Realty Agency. I was left speechless. I made an effort to support Janet during her period of unemployment with younger men, but at times, startled, I felt she resented my fulfilling job, questioning her actions. Settled for less. Holly cautioned me not to shout. Significant and despite admitting to being involved during her monthly cycle, she expected my silence. After a few months at Calcas, she threatened me with the choice of accepting her pleasant demeanor or risking her departure. Our situation to be with someone else, including our bed life. I remained which silent, suffered during her unemployment. She would notice the pain on my face. There were moments in our bedroom attempting to justify her actions. Was trying hard to compensate for the behavior was common by being more assertive and could even improve a marriage. For about 9 months, I was appalled by her attempt to use her married actions as a justification. Janet became more enthusiastic about her job and even pursued a home study course challenging her with the idea of having another woman. Transformation. She laughed off and the loving wife she was, mocking my ability to connect with challenging circumstances. She confidently stated that our relationship would continue on her terms. The good news was my steady advancement up the management ladder at my company. In reality, after 5 years with them, throughout our 22-year relationship, however, I had displayed unwavering Atlanta-based compliance with her wishes. Led to significant changes in my job responsibilities. I was being betrayed. The Atlanta company was to be integrated into our corporate structure. The next morning, I entered my office and was met by Henry Walker and make necessary staff reductions. With a smirk, I was excited about Alex's well-being, but the downside was that I would be traveling more frequently. I chose to remain for longer periods away from the coffee machine. I heard laughter. Janet was not pleased with the prospect of my increased time on the road. I continued past them, even though I made efforts to be home for weekends during longer trips. The boss's secretary seemed to find my situation Janet's anger about my frequent absences. I pondered the rough start to my day, as is often the case, both at work complications arose. Despite my efforts to focus, my return home on weekends proved insufficient to delve into my father's extended time away, knowing only his birthplace and departure at 38 in 1977, accusing me of enjoying my absence for Cambridgeshire, and even insinuating that I might have a lover in Atlanta. Anticipating his passing before my university years, including calling her during the day and sending flowers and humorous cards, and posted inquiries on genealogy websites. Completing the staff training in Atlanta took nearly 6 months, summoned me to his office, marking the conclusion of my travel. A successful but morally questionable man, I received a promotion at corporate headquarters, despite considering leaving changes to improve Janet's persuasion and high pay kept. However, it appeared I was mistaken. With his secretary Olivia. Once I stopped traveling, unbeknownst to his third Janet wife, increased her workload at the agency. Hearing rumors about my wife's infidelity, she sarcastically remarked that it was her turn to work for a promotion, and suggested it was time for me to experience solitude in the family trait of being cads. Our closeness suffered. The focus
2 weeks
shifted
ago,
to business.
Janet informed me that she and her colleagues would be away for the weekend,
that if the
attending a
personal
developer
issues affected
session
the business,
for high-rise
I might have
condominiums
to
near
leave
the
the company.
riverfront.
It was delivered
She
like a
deemed
strict
it
teacher
essential
scolding
for her
a child.
career advancement without
I bit my
consulting
lip,
me about her
noticing
absence,
Olivia
leaving
his
no
eager
room for
secretary
discussion.
lingering by
Even
the
though
door,
I stopped running
likely
with the
gathering
junior
information
mafia
to
back
share
in
with
high
her
school,
friends.
I stayed close
As I
with some
turned
of
to
my
exit,
best pals.
I couldn't help
especially
but wonder
Carmine.
why a young woman
I rang
like
him
her
up
would
and
involve
asked if he
herself
wanted
with
to
an
catch
older
the
man like
Steelers
Jack
versus
Walker.
Raiders game on Sunday.
Passing by her,
Without
I heard
hesitation,
more
he
snickering,
agreed,
prompting
knowing
me
how
to
to
lower
score
my
the
head
best
and walk
tickets
away.
for Steelers games.
As the door closed
I
behind
mentioned
me,
Janet's business
laughter
trip.
erupted.
So
Clearly
Carmine
directed
suggested
at my
I spend the
expense.
weekend with him and the guys.
Returning to my office,
catching up on
I
neighborhood
realized my
gossip.
presence there
The
served
idea
no
of a
purpose.
weekend away from home
I had
sounded
funded my
fantastic,
daughter's education,
so I didn't bother
yet
telling
now
Janet
I was
my
essentially
plans.
financing my wife's
Friday morning was
infidelities.
chilly.
I
And
was
over
a simple
breakfast,
guy who
I
enjoyed his
casually
gadgets,
inquired about
but could
reaching
live without
Janet while she was away.
extravagances. The
She
majority
coolly
of
brushed
my
off the
expenses
idea,
went toward
saying
Holly's
she'd be with
indulgences,
influential people
leaving
and
me
didn't want
questioning my
interruptions.
happiness.
It felt like she
It was
saw
my
me as a
haven
nagging
for creativity
parent rather
and
than a
success.
husband. I had
I let
designed
it go,
many of the parts
and later
being
that
produced
day,
and sold
Janet
here,
left for
and I
Atlantic
was
City.
confident I could find
Meeting up with
employment
Carmine
elsewhere.
was a real reunion.
They saw me as
It
weak,
had been over a
and
year
they weren't
since
wrong.
we last hung out.
I wasn't one to
I was
stir
one
up
of
trouble.
the few who
I was
managed to leave
content
the old
being
neighborhood
good with
without
Alex,
ending up
the
behind
submissive
bars.
engineer. Carmine also
Glancing at
mentioned
my
the debt he owed
screensaver
me,
of the family
promising
vacation,
to help me out
I
whenever
clicked
I
on my
needed.
email.
Saturday
To my
night,
surprise,
we hit up the
there was a
Sweet
message
Kitty Cat
waiting
Lounge
from
on
the
the
southeast
southeast
side.
Jennifer Holmes,
a strip joint
from the
reminiscent
Cambridge
of the Bada
Genealogy
Bing
Club
Committee.
from The Sopranos.
Astonished by
The
the
place
quick
was
response
packed
with
I
scantily
read the
clad
message
dancers,
and was
just
amazed.
like in the show.
Jennifer
A young
had read
woman
my inquiry
who
about
seemed
my
not
dad
much older than her
and had
18th
connected with a
birthday,
woman claiming to
approached
be his
and
niece,
danced
Rachel
provocatively
Murray,
in front of me.
my cousin.
Carmine mentioned that she
I
was
promptly
available
replied
for the
with
night,
my contact
placing
information,
emphasis on the
hoping to
idea
hear
that
from
she could
Rachel
be mine
soon.
if I wanted.
Leaving work
During
brought
this,
some
he
relief,
engaged in
and upon arriving home,
physical contact.
Holly greeted me with
In
a smile
response,
while cooking
I
dinner.
expressed my
Though I
commitment to
distanced
marital
myself
vows,
initially,
acknowledging my
I returned
temptation,
for the meal,
but affirming that
she
loyalty
softly
and
asked if we
fidelity
could discuss
hold
the previous
significance
night.
for me.
To which I
I
responded
declined
that
the
it seemed
advances
there
of
was
the
little
alluring
left to
stripper,
discuss,
and she moved
as
on
she had
to
made her
another
stance
interested
clear.
male customer.
In response,
Carmine,
she almost pleaded,
expressing disbelief,
acknowledging my
commented
qualities as
that
a
I
husband
seemed really
and
serious
requesting
about
that
the
I not
fidelity
deny
thing.
her anything.
I affirmed
I
my
questioned
stance,
her betrayal
stating
and
that without
humiliation,
fidelity,
seeking
there would
an
be
honest
nothing.
answer. No love,
Flustered,
no marriage.
she shrugged.
The
Unable
next
to
morning
provide a
brought the
satisfactory
typical
response.
cold, windy Pittsburgh
Growing
weather,
weary of her
but that
selfishness,
didn't deter the
I reflected
horde
on
of
my
fans
efforts
trekking
to make her
Three
happy.
River Stadium
Despite
for the Steelers
working
versus
long
Raiders
hours
game.
to meet our financial needs
The
and
bitter
desires,
rivalry between
I
these
only
two
received
football teams
disrespect and
borders
mockery.
on gang warfare.
I even drove an older
Since the
car so
Steelers
she could have a
snatched
newer
victory
one.
from the jaws
She
of
acknowledged
defeat
having
in one
needs
of the
that I couldn't
NFL's
fulfill,
most memorable
and presented
moments.
an ultimatum
With a fortunate
Accept it,
bounce,
as she
Franco
assumed I
Harris
would.
found himself
or
on
she
the
would
end
seek
of an
satisfaction
unlikely
with a
reception.
younger man.
Changing the outcome
I
of a
interjected,
fantastic defensive
mentioning
struggle
Henry
with
Walker's
the
name,
Oakland Raiders,
stating that
in the
everyone
first ever
knew he was
playoff
involved
game
with
at
her.
Pittsburgh's Three
She
Rivers
admitted to the
Stadium.
involvement,
Bluntly
neither
revealing
team has
that he was
forgotten that
essentially
legacy.
my boss. It's a good
and
thing
would
weapons
inherit
are
the
not
company.
permitted on the playing field.
She outlined the
The
arrangement.
Steelers weren't having
He
a great
fulfilled
year
her
at this
needs
point
in
in the
bed,
season, and if
with
I
a
didn't
record of
comply
5
and
wins
accept
and 5 losses,
she would leave me. Today
and he
marked
would
the
provide
biggest game
everything
of the
else she
season,
wanted
with the
and
silver
needed.
and black back in
As
town.
usual, I
It
said
was hard
nothing and
headbanging
simply
all
rose from
afternoon
my
on the
seat,
football field,
retreating to my study.
I was getting hoarse from
Tears
all the
flowed,
shouting and
and
screaming,
I wished to be anywhere
but the final
but here.
score was Steelers 21.
As the phone rang,
Raiders 20.
I answered to hear an
The day
unfamiliar
couldn't
voice
have
on the
ended
other
on a
end.
better note.
It was Rachel,
Or so I thought.
We conversed for
Despite
about an hour,
Carmine's
and when I
invitation
hung
to
up,
celebrate,
everything
I had
else
to bow
faded
out and
from
tell
my
him
mind,
another time.
and I wore a
Tomorrow
huge
would
smile.
be a hard day at the
Rachel
office,
was thrilled that
and
I
I knew
decided
I didn't
to
need a
explore my
hangover on
father's
top of
past
all the other
and had
job
much to
pressures.
share. I
Besides,
discovered that my
Janet
mother
was
had
coming
indeed
home this
forced my
evening,
father
and
out
I
of the
wanted to
house,
be there when she got
deceiving
home.
me throughout my childhood.
However, Janet
Sadly,
did not come home
he
Sunday
passed away
night.
in 1983
I left for
when
work
I was just
Monday
11.
morning with
He
serious
succumbed
doubts
to
in my
drinks
mind
poisoning
about the
and my
latest
grandmother
developments
always
in my
blamed
marriage.
my mother for his
There
behavior
had been a sense
and
of
mental
impending
state.
doom. Whenever
Rachel
I thought
informed
deeply
me that
about
after
the state
leaving
of the
us,
relationship
he yearned to
between
reconnect
Janet
with
and
me,
myself,
but was prevented from doing so.
Sure, there were rough
we
patches
arranged to meet over the weekend at her home in
maybe our
Cambridge.
marriage had decayed
I was
into something
excited,
more than
knowing
just a
the
rough
break
patch.
would be beneficial.
The workday
The
was
remainder
as
of the
hectic as
week
expected
dragged on.
when I left home in the
Things
morning.
at home remained
with several
unchanged,
high-level meetings
and at work,
a persecution
I was
lawsuit
continually
brought
ridiculed
against the
behind
company
my back.
high on my
Henry
agenda.
and his friends found it
wasn't
amusing
until
to hang a pair of
5:30
underwear on
that
my
I had a
office
chance
door.
to sit down and check
I glanced
my
at
emails.
Olivia, but she
There were a
remained
dozen
silent.
emails from the staff,
Enclosed in the
along
underwear
with
was
the
a
latest
post-it note
information
that
on
read,
the lawsuit.
"Please
Near
return
the
to
end
your
of the
wife."
list of emails,
I
there
was
was
shattered.
one titled,
I sat
"Who
at
was
my
the
desk
last
and
one
wept
to
once
know?"
again that day.
As I
I
opened
wanted
the
to blame
email,
everyone but
anticipating
myself.
a
I couldn't
humorous
wait.
animated cartoon,
When Saturday came,
I was
I
suddenly
informed Holly
confronted with
that
a
I was
photo of
visiting a
Janet
friend in London,
and another man
and she
engaged
seemed
in a
indifferent to my
passionate
plans.
embrace and
I
a
suspected
lip-locked
she would be
kiss.
unfaithful, So
At the
being
bottom
away
of the photo,
made it easier
there was
for
a text message that simply
her. The
suggested,
journey to Cambridge proved
"Want to
stressful,
know what happened after
and I
this?
arrived at Rachel's
Click
house
on the
an
next
hour
link."
later than expected.
A cold chill raised up my spine
she welcomed
as
me
I
with the
hesitated
warmest
for a
hug
moment,
I'd received in
staring
years,
at the photo of
seemingly
Janet kissing another
unfazed by
man.
the delay.
Then I clicked on
I
the
met her
next
husband
link.
Greg and their
The
children,
screen flashed
Grace and
up
William,
another photo.
after which we
This
dove
time,
into discussions
Janet
about
and the
my
man
father
she was
and
kissing
newfound
were
family.
both unclothed.
Rachel's
and standing
warm and
together in a
selfless
motel
demeanor
room.
was evident.
Again,
as
at the
she
bottom
and
of
Greg
the photo
conversed
was a text
animatedly,
message that
often
simply
finishing
said,
each other's
"Want to know what
sentences,
happened after
eager
this?
to share
Click
our
on the
family
next link."
story. My hand
Joined
was
by
trembling.
David and Lucy
There was
Price,
a tightness in
my
my
cousin
throat
and Rachel's
chest,
brother,
as
we
the
bonded
unclothed
well,
image of my wife
exchanging
burned
insights
itself
about
into
my
my
father
brain.
and family.
There was a part
After
of me
lunch,
that did not want to
we
see
took a
the
short
next
trip,
photo,
affording
Still,
me time to
I
reflect.
knew I had to click on the link.
Upon our return,
The next photo
David
was
and
the
I
end of my
discussed our
marriage,
jobs and
with
family
Janet on the
lives,
bed on all fours,
and for some reason,
with the same man
I found
as
myself
in the other two
confiding in my
photos,
new cousins,
displaying an
They
expression
offered
of lust
unwavering
and
support,
ecstasy on her face.
advising me not to
The sole
tolerate my
woman
current
I
situation.
ever wholeheartedly
Leaving
loved
Cambridge
turned out
I
to
felt
be
a
an
renewed
unfaithful
perspective.
adulteress.
Having endured
I
numerous
placed my
lies
love
and
and trust in
mistreatment,
her entirely.
the kindness and
And now
honesty
she was
shown by
tearing
my
my heart
newfound
from my
family
chest.
gave me hope.
The text at the
I
photo's
realized
bottom
I
read,
needed to reclaim
"Frick
happiness,
provided by
not only
Robert
for myself,
Tolson.
but also
My
for
worst
my
nightmare
daughters,
had been thrust
friends,
in my
and this
face.
new family.
Undoubtedly,
Returning
Janet's
home at 8
recent
p.m.,
coldness wasn't
I found
merely a
Holly
wife
getting
upset
ready
with
to
her
go out.
husband.
I
It
inquired
resembled
about her
rigor
plans,
mortis
and she
setting
replied
into
that
our
she was
dying
going out with her
marriage.
friends.
What followed?
Catching her off guard,
Anger and
I
rage.
mentioned her second paramour,
For me,
Max.
it was a calm
She
resolve.
pleaded for me
a
to stop
feeling I
bringing
hadn't
it up,
experienced in a
seemingly
long time.
indifferent to my feelings.
Revenge settled
I
into my
urged her
mind,
to stop and
as
be my wife.
infidelity and betrayal
Dismissing
wouldn't
my
stand in my
concerns,
lifetime.
she insisted that
Two
she
people
was
would pay
and always
dearly
would
for
be my
knowingly
wife.
heaping
She
insults
asked
upon
me
me.
not to deny her
My
pleasures,
initial thoughts
promising
revolved
to make
around
life
the person
easy for
sending
me, and
incriminating
assured she
emails.
would be back by midnight.
No name or indication
Ignoring
of
my
the
pleas,
sender's identity.
she continued to threaten,
Questions
attempting
echoed
to
in my
embrace
head.
me as I turned
Why
away.
send this email?
Unfazed,
What did they hope
she
to
grabbed
gain
her
by
Prada
exposing my
handbag and
wife's
headed for the
infidelity?
door.
Were they friends
Asserting my
or
position
enemies
as her
of
husband,
Janet?
I'd
I'd
have
have
to
to
address
address
her
these
not to
questions
proceed
later.
with her plans.
I inserted
She
the
paused,
CD into my computer,
looking at me as
copied
if
the
questioning
email
my
and 3
authority
photos, then
before
deleted
bursting
it.
into laughter.
A scrubber program
Mockingly,
erased all
she asked
evidence
what
from
I
my
would
hard
do,
drive,
asserting that I
sitting
would
back
never
in my
have the
swivel
courage
chair,
to leave
making
her,
sense of
and
Janet's
predicting that I
betrayal.
would always
I could
be
only
there for
attribute
her.
it to her multiple
Crestfallen,
personalities.
I dropped my head.
Yet, if she
realizing
wanted
I
a
had been a
divorce,
fool for
I
far
would have
too
granted
long,
it.
catering
and we
to her
both could have walked
selfishness
away from
while
this
neglecting my
marriage
own needs.
But now,
It was
my
time to end the
revenge would be
charade
swift and
make
complete.
plans for change.
I'd show no mercy to
I wasted
either
no
of them.
time in taking
The
action.
plan began to solidify
Actually,
in my mind.
I began while she was
Leaving
out with
the
Henry
office,
or Max.
I found a
maybe
payphone
both
around
together.
the corner.
That's
Dialing
likely
an
what she
untraceable
meant by
pay-as-you-go
indulging in
cell
her
phone.
desires and having
I
it all.
informed Carmine that I
My
believed
thoughts
it was
fueled
time
my
for me to
anger,
collect on the
causing
debt
me to
he
lose
owed me.
focus.
Upon
I needed to
returning
find a
home
way
around
to eradicate
7:30,
any
I
remaining
found
affection
Janet
I
already
held
there,
for her.
watching TV.
And I believe I found
She
a
didn't
solution.
rush to greet me, but
I
commented on
located
my
the
late
box
arrival,
containing
saying
a
I was
specific
coming
picture
home
of
late.
my mom and sisters.
In response,
the only
I
one
noted
I had.
that she was also
Though
coming home late.
skeptical,
As
I
I moved
cut
to
out
the
a
kitchen,
picture of Holly's face
silence
and pasted
hung
it
between
next
us.
to them.
I
With
grabbed
no
a
love
beer
left
and headed
for
to
them,
my office,
adding Holly's
ensuring to
smirking
lock
face
the
to
door.
the picture might just
In our
sever my
country,
emotional
a
ties.
person convicted of a capital
Placing it
crime
on my study desk
usually
around
gets one of two
12:45 a.m.
sentences:
I
the
completed the
pass-away
task.
penalty
I
or
had
life in
mostly
prison.
devised my short-term
My
plans,
revenge plan
even though
involved
executing
one
them might
pass-away
take a
penalty
few weeks.
and one life
Fortunately, I had the
I needed
luxury
some
of
quiet time to
as Holly
finalize my
wasn't
revenge
anticipating
plan.
my departure.
Carmine
Though
would handle
uncertain
Mr.
and
Robert
requiring
Tolson,
assistance,
and I'd
I had
personally
convinced
settle the
myself by
score
then
with
to
Janet.
follow through.
To make the
I heard
revenge
someone
appear as
entering
a simple
clumsily
case
through the
of a
door,
wife leaving her
and
husband,
peeking out the window,
I sent
I
flowers to
witnessed
Janet's
Henry
office
Walker's departure.
and made dinner reservations
As I
near
heard her
workplace.
ascending the stairs,
I left
I
messages
hastily
for her to
cleared
meet
my
me,
browsing history,
but she never showed
resolving
up.
to use
I
incognito
instructed the
mode
maitre d'
henceforth.
to give our table
After
to
she
someone
retired
else,
to our bedroom,
ensuring he'd
I
remember
descended
my
the
wife
stairs to
standing
brew
me
some
up.
coffee.
Janet
Reflecting
returned
on
home
my
that
future
evening
away from
without
here,
offering
especially
any
without my
explanation or
daughters,
reason for
I
missing
found it
our dinner
tolerable.
reservation.
Deciding
The
to
fact of the
relocate
matter
closer to
was,
my daughters
I
come
had
Monday
no interest
morning,
in anything she
I
might
headed
have
to
said
work
in
resolved
myself not to exert myself any longer, and the wheels of revenge were set in motion.
Remarks and laughter
the following
directed
day,
at me,
a courier
arranged
came
a bank
to my office
meeting for
and handed me
1
an
p.m.,
envelope
utilizing
marked
the time
personal
before to
and
review my
confidential.
finances.
Inside,
Though a gamble,
there was a
if
single sheet of
successful
paper
and with the
with
right
a bold
support,
heading
I'd
instructing
emerge
to
relatively
destroy it
unscathed.
after reading.
The meeting proceeded
The
as
first
planned,
sentence on the paper
allowing me to close my
advised me to
savings
secure
account
an airtight
and remove
alibi
my
for
name
the
from our
upcoming
joint
night.
account.
The
With
second
a tidy
sentence
sum in
provided a
hand,
name,
I shut
Carlos
down the
Mandara,
savings account
and a
for
phone
cash.
number. I read
En
and
route back
reread
to
the
the
phone
office,
number until I
I
had it
stopped at a
memorized.
PC World.
The paper was then
purchasing
sent
2
through the
digital
shredder,
voice recorders,
and I collected the
a
shredded
500
pieces to be
GB
discreetly
USB
dropped into
3.0
various trash
tough drive
cans outside the
and a new
office building
PC
that
hard
evening.
drive.
I arrived
Upon
home before
returning,
Janet.
I
changed
commenced
clothes,
accessing the
poured a
company's
tall
private
Jim Beam,
customer files,
and sat down to listen
a
to some
task that
smooth
took me an
jazz.
hour to crack
The
Jack's
TV
password.
remained off, Ironically,
it was to be my night
his wife's
as king
name
of my castle,
and his 6-digit birthday.
Janet had to find her own
With the
entertainment.
necessary access
There was no
secured,
confrontation.
I
when she
downloaded
got
all the
home.
files to the drive.
She quickly assessed
along
the
with
scene
my
and turned
plans
around,
and designs for
walking
the
out the door
energy-efficient
again.
hydraulic pump
I
system,
couldn't care less about her
positioning
destination,
the company for
whether out
continued
to
success
eat
or to meet Robert Tolson.
We manufactured pumps
The
for
sand
air
in the
conditioning
hourglass
units,
was almost
heavy
empty
machinery,
for both of them, and even
I was
for
in
the
bed
dairy
when
industry.
Janet finally returned,
After clearing
slipping
my
quietly
PC
alongside me,
including all
Silence
plans and
was
work,
the loudest noise
I shut
before
it down,
I fell asleep.
swapped out the hard drive
Thursday
for a new
evenings
one,
were the
packed
usual
everything
poker
in my
night for
bag,
some guys
and
from
reinstalled
work.
Windows.
Held in the back room
The
of
remainder
the
of the day was
Stagecoach
spent
bar.
researching competitors
This served
on my
as my
phone
airtight
and
alibi
browsing
for the
engineering
rest of the
jobs
evening.
in the South London
This time,
survey area
I
on
was the
Monster
one slipping into
before
bed
calling it a
early in the
day.
morning. That
The
evening,
clock on my
following
nightstand
another
read
quiet dinner,
2:35.
I retired
as I
to my
pulled the
study,
covers over me,
discovering
not a
that a
sound
major
or movement
competitor
from Janet,
which had struggled during
falling
the
asleep
financial
wasn't
downturn,
difficult,
sought
even
a
though I knew
mechanical
what had taken
engineer
place
for basic
earlier that
design
evening.
and shop floor management.
Now that Robert Tolson
intrigued
had
me.
faced his
While
pass-away
not precisely
penalty,
what I
it
desired,
was time to
it was
mete out
close.
punishment to the second
Despite the
perpetrator.
£10,000 lower
Immediate
salary
action
offer
wasn't
compared to my
required for
current
the
one,
life imprisonment
I promptly
penalty.
emailed them my CV.
Janet's punishment would
To
commence
maintain
after a phone
appearances
call,
with Holly,
providing
I
a
opted
sense
to
of
sleep in our
satisfaction
marital bed
and
that
justice.
night.
However, whatever
I
it was
ensured
in
to feign
Janet's
sleep
warped
when she entered.
personality that
Her
led her to
touch made me
blatantly
feel
disrespect
nauseous,
me,
but
was
oddly,
for someone
it
else to
pleased me to
determine.
react this way.
I no
I
longer
was
felt
growing
any
repulsed by
compassion
her,
toward the
which would
woman I
aid me
once
in the
loved
long
with
run.
all my heart and
The
soul.
next day,
A
the
surprising
impending
retribution
retribution
was
from
of her
Sutton
own
Hydraulics
making.
called.
The police
expressing
interviewed every member of the
disbelief at my
Calcus
potential
Realty
move
agency
from Walker
staff,
Engineering
gathering
to his
interesting
smaller
but
firm.
inconsistent statements.
Although he nearly
Janet
offered me the
faced
job
multiple police
immediately,
interviews.
I requested
Detective
an
Lawrence
interview
Back
the following
questioned
day,
me about
which
Robert
he agreed
Tolson,
to.
attempting to
Another
bait questions
crucial
about a
piece
more
had
than
fallen into
professional
place,
relationship
and
between
things
Robert
were
and
progressing
Janet.
rapidly.
I affirmed
With
my
ample
complete
time on
faith
hand,
in my wife's
I began
fidelity,
researching
dismissing
flats
any
in
doubt.
the area.
He just
Eventually
smiled at me,
finding one
perhaps
just
15
15
minutes
minutes
from
from
my
my
betrayed
daughter's
man,
and 5 minutes
The
from
funeral
work.
service for
I
Robert
scheduled a
Tolson
viewing
took
for the
place on
day
Tuesday.
after the interview with Robert
That
Williams.
morning, I observed
Subsequently,
Janet wearing her
I
somber
informed
black
Jack
dress,
about needing to
the
visit
same
my
one she had
daughters
worn
in
to my
Kingston
mother's funeral.
to sign some papers.
She
the
didn't
next
inquire
day.
if I wanted
To
to
which he
accompany her to
casually
Robert's
agreed.
funeral.
That night,
Whatever
I
thought
phoned
she
my
had
longtime
regarding
friend,
Robert's
Toby
pass
Brown,
away,
she kept
arranging
to
to
meet
meet
him and his wife Sarah.
Undoubtedly,
The following
she had
evening,
much to
after
ponder,
my interview,
including
and
the
flat
homicide
viewing.
and her infidelity.
Toby and Sarah, aware
Over the
that I had
following
something
week,
on my mind,
Janet appeared
eagerly
eager to
awaited
engage
my
in a serious
explanation.
discussion about our relationship.
Before meeting them,
however,
I spoke to my
cold
daughters
shoulder
about the
promptly
situation,
halted her attempts.
receiving their
I had
supportive
moved
and
beyond any
understanding
possibility
responses.
of reconciliation
At the gathering
or
with
making
Toby
amends.
and Sarah,
I
I
held the
disclosed
power
the
to
details
end
of
the
the
charade
initial
whenever
phase
I
of my
chose.
plans.
3 weeks
Their
after
surprise
Robert's
at my decision
homicide,
to fight
police
back
investigation
outweighed
seemed
any
to
shock
lose
over
momentum.
Holly's infidelity,
No new leads
a
emerged,
common occurrence
and there
in
were
their view.
suggestions that Robert
Sarah
might have been
inquired about
executed
my
by a
decision
loan
to leave
shark or a
Holly,
bookie.
offering me
During
another
this
cup
period,
of tea.
Janet's mental
I
state
recounted the
continued to
revelations
decline,
from the meeting
marked
with my
by
cousins,
increased absent-mindedness
including my
and
father's
confusion.
expulsion from
Little
the house
things
by my
frightened
mother
her,
and my
yet
sisters,
I offered no
siding
assistance
with
for
her.
solace.
I
Even
noted that
witnessing
my
her
daughter
struggle,
supported me this
I thought to
time.
myself, too
Toby
bad,
expressed
as I
concern,
observed her slowly
questioning
unravel.
if the discovery at
Finally,
the meeting
on
had
the
spurred me
subsequent
to
Thursday,
stand up for myself.
I placed the call to Carlos.
I clarified that
The
it was
plan
during
was
a
already
visit
set,
to my father's
and he was
grave
eager to set
that
it
I
in
noticed
motion.
something on the
Janet
stone
had only
which
hours
shocked
left
me
before her
and
new
prompted
life
my
would
decision
begin.
to leave.
Friday
They both
morning,
asked
I left for work before
simultaneously
Janet was
about
dressed,
what I had seen
deliberately
on the memorial
avoiding a
stone.
final encounter in my
I
house.
shared that it featured a
The sand
rose
in the
image
hourglass
with the
had run
words
out.
in loving memory.
Across the street from
followed
our
by
house,
my father's
a car with
birthday
2 men
and
lay in
age
wait.
at passing.
The kidnapping
Coincidentally,
unfolded at a
my
4-way
current
stop
age.
sign intersection.
Toby and Sarah
with vehicles
slightly
in front
recoiled
and behind Janet's
indicating
car,
their understanding.
preventing any escape.
I explained that
With
I
the
faced a
precision of a
choice
Delta
when
Force
confronted
team,
with moments
2 men
that could lead
acted
to
swiftly.
drinks, loving or worse.
As the driver's
as
door
my
opened,
grandmother believed.
a needle
I
punctured her
decided
arm
not
while
to
the
emulate
seatbelt
my
was cut
father,
away.
and instead
Janet
chose
was
to
pushed
fight
into
back.
the passenger
I
seat,
continued,
and one of the
revealing
men
that I
took the
wouldn't
driver's
sacrifice
seat.
myself trying
The
to
3
be the perfect
vehicles
husband
departed
any longer.
rapidly,
Enduring
the entire
misuse
process
and ridicule.
lasting less than 30
I confessed
seconds.
to my friends,
No witnesses
feeling
being vulnerable about how low
At 11
I had
o'clock
sunk.
that morning,
Sarah
in a
offered
branch
help
bank on the
and
east
shared
side
her
of
plan
town,
to protect herself.
a woman
and
made
get
up
back
to
at
look
Holly.
exactly like
I
Janet
smiled
entered
and nodded,
and handed a
appreciating
withdrawal
Sarah's
slip
toughness,
for
despite previous
$25,000
suspicions of
from
her
our joint
affair.
account to the teller.
Explaining my financial
She
strategy,
presented a driver's
I shared
license
that
and
in
passport
2008
as
I
proof of
established a
identity.
separate savings account.
The teller took a few
depositing
minutes
all
to
my
issue the
bonuses
withdrawal
and
in
extra
the form
cash.
of a cashier's check.
Securing a mortgage
A
required
guard
only my
escorted the
name,
woman to her
making
car,
it easier
noting
for me
the
to
license
apply
plate
alone.
as she drove away.
I outlined
the
Toby's
line at the
role in
American
transferring
Airlines
ownership
ticket
of my
counter was
house to a
short.
new company he
The
would
Janet
create
lookalike
to settle
approached
the
the
mortgage,
counter, presented
transferring
her
the
photo
deeds
ID
through
and
the land
passport,
registry,
and received
Toby
the boarding
voiced
pass.
skepticism about the plan.
Flight reservations
but
had
I
been
assured
made
him that
online
Holly
the
wouldn't
previous
have the
night.
means to contest
The first
it.
leg of the journey
I
was
pointed
to
out that
JFK
her
Airport,
religious parents,
followed by a
upon
non-stop
discovering
flight
her
on number
infidelity,
951,
would prioritize
to Rio
their
de Janeiro.
principles over
The
supporting
Pittsburgh
her.
departure was at
They
4:45
agreed,
in the afternoon,
and even offered to
reaching
help
JFK,
cover the
New
mortgage,
York,
allowing me to
subsequently,
delay payment.
At 10:30 that evening,
On my
the
way
American
home,
Airlines
I
plane
visited
took
the
off,
local Land
carrying
Rover
the
dealership,
passenger,
where I negotiated to trade Holly's car for the latest model. I waited until noon. We terminated the payment plan for the Range Rover police to report a missing
benefiting
person,
the dealership
surprisingly,
from reselling it.
Detective Lawrence Backton
I assured
was
the
the
dealer
officer
that I would return
the
for my
house
own
to take
upgrade,
the report,
knowing he
I
could
informed
recoup
him
the
that
cost
Janet
of
had
Holly's
not
car
returned
by
home
selling
at her
it as
usual
practically
time.
brand new.
Attempts to reach her on her
I
cell phone were
apologized for
futile,
any
as
inconvenience,
it displayed a
but explained that the
non-in-service
prospect of
notification.
selling me an
When I
expensive
contacted
new Range
Amanda
Rover
Stoccata,
more than
one of Janet's
compensated.
close friends at
Upon
Calcas
leaving,
Realty,
I picked
she
up a
revealed that
2016
Janet had not
brochure,
shown up for work
not
the
for
previous
myself,
day,
but for Holly,
and hadn't even called in
upon
to report
arriving
her
home.
absence.
She sat in the lounge,
Detective Backton
nursing a
made
coffee
cryptic notes
and
in
looking
his
pale.
notepad,
While
I removed
occasionally
my
glancing
jacket
up
and
at
tossed
me.
my bag onto the
Eventually,
floor,
preparing
began
to enact the
questioning
second
state
part
of
of
my
my
plan.
marriage, probing
I
into
expressed my
potential
love for
problems
Holly and my
that might
desire
be
for her
related
to
to
have the
Janet's
best.
disappearance.
I declared that I would
I
trade in her
reiterated
car
what I had told
and
him
buy her a
after
new
Robert
2017
homicide
model,
investigation,
pointing to it in the
our
brochure.
marriage was fine.
Expressing her
And I couldn't fathom
enthusiasm,
any reason for
she
Janet to
exclaimed that she
voluntarily
loved the new
vanish.
car.
He then
Unaware
inquired
of my
if I had
plan,
any involvement
she
in foul
acknowledged
play
my
concerning
ability to
Janet,
make her feel better,
to which I
mentioning
emphatically
the only
stated my
hiccup
love for
being
my
that
wife
they already
and
had a
my
buyer for my
inability
car.
to damage her. She
Lying
proposed to the
taking it
police
to the
was a
dealership
skill I
by
developed
Friday
early in
afternoon,
life, leaving work
associating with
early
the
for the
junior
task.
mafia, and
She
she
suggested
suggested
I
I use her
well.
car for the weekend
3
to
days
visit
later,
my lovers,
Detective
causing
Backton
her to
visited
recoil
my
at the
office
final
during
remark,
business hours,
a look of
presumably
shock and
to
confusion
assess the
crossing
husband
her
he
face.
was dealing with.
Inquiring
Once in my
about what
office,
was wrong,
he sat down
I prompted
and
her to
offered a
address the
tight-lipped
situation.
I
She
wore a
mentioned
distressed
nothing
husband's
specific,
expression,
but asked
as
if
I
I was still
questioned him
upset
about
about our
any
arrangement
news regarding Janet's whereabouts.
I clarified that
He
it was not
responded,
our arrangement,
stating that they
but
had
rather hers,
retraced Janet's activities
emphasizing
after
that I
she
had
left
no
my
say
house
in
on
it.
Friday morning.
I questioned
providing
if I
some
had no choice
information
but to accept
with a
it,
mix of positive
hoping
and
for a
negative
response.
aspects. She
Several
simply nodded,
witnesses claimed to have
appearing
seen
as if
her
she had
having
asserted
coffee
her
at Denny's
dominance
restaurant
and I
on
had
Bennett
surrendered.
Street.
Around 10
Despite
o'clock
the
on Friday
circumstances,
morning, she declared that she
Detective
loved me,
Backton informed
expressing
me that
genuine
Janet
concern.
had appeared at the Allegheny
I said
National
nothing
Bank
in reply
around 11
and
o'clock,
walked off into the
as
kitchen.
captured on video surveillance.
My phone began to ring.
She made a
So I headed out to the back garden to take the
withdrawal
call
from our joint savings
Toby
account.
confirmed the money
As
had
he
been
shared
transferred.
this information,
I
was
expressed
good to go the
disbelief
next day
and questioned
without
how
delay.
it was possible.
I entered the bank,
stating that
and was
Janet
shown into the
hadn't
mortgage
mentioned
specialist's
anything
office.
about wanting to withdraw
An hour
money.
later, the
Detective
mortgage was paid
Backton
off,
assured me
and all my
that the
remaining
facts were
accounts
clear,
were closed.
explaining
I
that
walked
the
a few
cashier
doors
had
down
made
and opened a
photocopies
new
of
account
Janet's
with another
driver's
bank.
license
I
and
was content,
passport, knowing
before
I wouldn't have
issuing
to
the
pay anything
cashier's check.
again unless
He was
Holly
confident
pursued legal
that
action
when I saw the
and took me to
surveillance
court.
tape, I would identify
My
the
smile
person
faded.
at the cashier's window.
The next day,
as my wife
I contacted
Janet,
the land registry and
once
completed
again,
the appropriate
Detective
online
Backton paused
application
to gauge my reaction
with
to
all
his
the details
revelation.
of Toby and Sarah's new
I
company.
expressed to the
Within
detective
10 minutes of
that I
applying,
believed there
I
must be
received
some
a confirmation
mistake,
email
emphasizing
stating it would
that
take
Janet
3
and
to
I
5 days
discussed
to
everything
complete.
happening in
Once
our
done,
marriage.
I would simply
maintained
hand over the
bewildered
deeds to
look
Toby
while
and he could
staring back
register
at
the
the police
property to his
detective.
company.
Aware
That
that he
same
was
day,
saving the
I
most
knocked on Jack's
devastating
door.
news for last.
Olivia was with him,
and I
as
had to
usual.
prepare for another
Fridays
acting
were typically
performance.
when he had his way with
The
her,
detective went
and I
on to
believe I
share the most
interrupted their
disturbing
closeness
news,
activities,
stating that my
she
wife
left us
had
alone,
purchased airline tickets
placing my
to New York,
resignation on his
and
desk
then to Rio
he
de
looked up
Janeiro.
at me with that stupid
He
smirk
mentioned
on
that
his
they
face.
located her
He
car
inquired
in the
about the
long-term
document
parking
in my
lot
hands.
at the airport.
I replied
revealing
that it was
that
my
our flight left
resignation
Pittsburgh
and
on
expressed
Friday
the belief that
afternoon
leaving
at
immediately would be
4:45,
best,
and her
considering the
flight to
situation
Rio
with our
left
families.
New York at 10:30.
I suggested that
The
he might
detective
not want me
informed me
around for too
that
long.
they contacted
He
the
appeared
Rio de
dumbstruck
Janeiro
by the
police
news.
to locate
I
Janet,
boldly
but she
requested that
seemed to
my
have vanished once
P-45
she
be
arrived
ready by
in Rio,
Monday,
and
Detective
emphasized
Backton
not
now stared
mentioning my
intently at
departure
me,
to anyone
awaiting
Holly
my
didn't
response.
know.
I
He pleaded
exclaimed that it was
pathetically,
madness,
insisting
and
that they
stated
needed
that Janet
me.
would never do
I
something
countered
like
by
that.
saying they
I
apparently needed
emphasized
his
my
nephew
belief
more.
in her love for me
I informed him
and
that I
mine
would
for her,
return on Monday to
expressing
collect the
that
last
leaving
of
the
my
country
things.
was absurd.
Discreetly, in
I
an
pretended
attempt
to
to drop a
portray
pin
the
from my
betrayed
pocket,
husband,
using the
began to cry
opportunity
right
to
in front of
remove a
the
digital
detective.
recorder from my
There was
sock.
a moment of silence in my
Constructing
office
a pin
before the
for it,
detective
I
resumed
hit
talking
record
and
He
discreetly
asked
placed
if I
it under the
believed this
seat
had any
and
connection
into
to
the
the
wooden frame
homicide
as
of
I
Robert
stood back up.
Tolson.
In
Concluding
response,
the conversation,
I questioned how he
I
could
mentioned
even ask
having
that,
things to do,
asserting
and
that
left
my
his
wife
office.
had no involvement in
As
the
a
homicide.
parting shot,
I
I
told him not
reminded
to
him
come
that crawling back when he's broke, and never charged, suggesting that the only thing keeping his cheating wife clarified that they never charged my wife. I smiled, but knowing that it hit on their suspect list. Turning, I left his office. I responded to the detective's statement about others suggesting my wife and Mr. Tolson and dropped off her car at the dealership. Expressing
John
disbelief,
Reeves kindly offered to drive me
that
home,
it was absurd
and
to
I
accuse her
accepted
of being
gratefully.
linked to the Tolson
When
homicide,
I got home that night,
emphasizing
Holly
that
was
more
sitting
than
at the
office
kitchen
gossip
table
was
with
needed
big
to
red
support
bags
such
under
a
her
claim.
eyes.
My
I knew
eyes
she had been
bore into
crying.
his as I
I
challenged
asked her
the
what
credibility
happened.
of the accusations.
Reluctantly, she told me
The
she had
detective
contracted
explained that they
gonorrhea.
were still
I
investigating,
laughed.
And now that my wife was out of the country, she just glared at me. Suspicions about her role in the homicide taking the medications to get back to normal. He paused for a moment, and the tension in the air was palpable. At the crime scene that night indicated for the first time in months, with Toldson being tortured and thumped for hours before being strangled. I slept in the spare room. In response, refreshed. I emitted a small laugh. The good night's sleep had done wonders the idea that my petite wife our bedroom could have committed such a crime, explaining that I was giving her space to rest in her capability, stating that she could barely open a pickle jar, that I found her disgusting, let alone strangle someone. I remained silent. Tears started streaming down her cheeks escalating as she admitted to messing up big accusations. She professed her love for me Detective and expressed a desire for me to get better. All the evidence thus far pointed to my wife's involvement, but it vanished quicker than expected. She may have had assistance. That surprised me. Surprised, it dawned on me then that I had lost all affection for the woman I had been married to for 21 years. He explained truly that they considered the possibility, apparently but assured me that I had a solid alibi and her situation did nothing to sway me. However, I left the room. His voice lacked without saying a word. I got into my car and drove off contentedly, expressing my disbelief. That night, I stayed with Toby and my wife had left the country, hosted a dinner party with many friends and colleagues in a homicide, and that I returned home late Sunday morning. I found Holly up doing chores. Pausing to glare directly at him into the lounge, I sought clarification. She rushed towards me and asking me if I accurately summarized his statements. I simply patted her on the back. He sat there, excitedly assessing whether my arranging for the new car to arrive or not, offering to drop her off in town to meet her sister, in my voice, who could then drive her to the dealership. That if there was nothing else, her driving back in the new Range Rover, rising from my desk, approaching me with open closed door and turning back to the kettle, signaling his departure. I pretended not to notice her. Doc backed and got up from his chair throughout the day and moved slowly to the door. Excessive affection. Thank you for your time, Mr. Canella. I'll keep you persistently tried to kiss or hug me, but I kept finding excuses to leave, and I didn't. By bedtime, I noticed she had been crying. After the detective left, wishing her good night, the door and settled back in my swivel chair. Sleeping with her. I was sure Dr. desire to cuddle up, aimed to extract more information, then provide substantial details. I responded that it wouldn't happen until she got the all clear from the doctor. Each statement and question, I firmly realizing she suspected my involvement. To which she retorted bitterly, my alibis were stating that when she got better, I was playing poker. Was sure she could find a man willing to be in bed with her. And I was in meetings all day the Friday when Janet went missing. I chuckled to myself. It was Saturday morning. It took longer than 2 weeks after Janet's disappearance. There it was. I hadn't heard from Carlos or Carmine. All the regrets Janet's from Friday night and well-being remained leaving behind unknown. 21 years of resentment. At times, I sensed being followed. In the past, morning I would have fallen for her manipulations. My actions were meticulously planned. I ignored her tears to home and headed for the grocery shopping on the way. It would be my last night in my house, evasion, and it would be someone trying to conceal. I was also relieved she said those things. I called Detective Backton for updates on my lingering doubts I might have had, but he had no new information. As I looked at my doctored picture of her, the Brazilian police found no evidence of Janet after her arrival in Rio. She was only sweet when she wanted something. I ordered a pizza and nasty when she didn't get it. While watching college football on TV, I woke early Monday morning. The doorbell rang. Holly was up early. The delivery guy arrived with my hot pizza. I drove her into town as bucks as a tip. I drove off. Upon opening the pizza box in the kitchen, I noticed an envelope on top. But I was determined to make it so. I pulled out a sheet of paper. On the way, I called the mobile phone for the next day and terminated both our contracts. It directed me to dress for church. Pulling over into a lay-by, I paid the penalty on my card. They informed me that the phone would remain in service until out the side door on the east side of the church. Next, I headed to the office to pick up my P45. Dark Ford Crown Victoria would be waiting outside. I stepped into the factory. Greeted by a somber atmosphere. I understood that this would be a final word of my departure seemed to have spread, Carlos briefly eliciting looks of fear from my colleagues. He had waited 2 weeks to ensure the reason behind their unease. Plan of Janet I made my way down the corridor toward my office. All the evidence passing by the coffee machine where the usual group was gathered. Carlos set up an elaborate deception if Max and Henry were aware of their shared involvement with my wife. That Janet was alive when she boarded the plane to Rio with others. This prevented the police from making a circumstantial case against me. They asked about my wife, there was no body to be found. The usual laughter at the recurring joke was pitch which black, I failed to find amusing. At the ceiling. I replied that she wasn't doing well, attributing it to one of them giving her an unwelcome surprise. I left chain of events reminded me that my ancestral roots would always bring out a dark side of my personality, leading to a commotion. Whenever I was disrespected by anyone, approaching Olivia or nurture, she offered no doubt in my mind where my dark side came from, perhaps indicating that I was now learning some respect. And the 10 o'clock mass is highly attended by several hundred. He asserted that he had what I wanted. It was instructing me to take it and get out and spot. Perhaps that respect was merely my imagination. If the police trailed me, they must have waited outside the church as the throng of people moved to the recorder into my pocket from under the chair. I quickly slipped out the side door. I knew he'd had his usual Friday rendezvous with Olivia, was waiting with the motor running. I had it recorded. And I got into the back seat as the car roared into the busy street. If I had another job lined up. The trip took about 10 minutes. Initially, before the big sedan pulled up in front of a large warehouse building lined up. The driver never turned around, instructing me to enter the building through the side door. Back. Inside the large empty building, there was an office area near the back, to which light coming from several windows.
Olivia
As I
entered with my
approached,
P45.
Carlos stepped out and
when
walked
she
toward
asked
me,
what was amusing,
marking our first
Jack
face-to-face
explained
meeting.
that I had requested
Carlos
my bonus
greeted me,
and pay,
mentioning
finding
that
it
Carmine
rich.
said it was all
Olivia
right to call me
chimed in,
JC,
laughing along.
We shook hands,
Deciding to
and
join
Carlos,
in, I
with a
responded
stoic
with
expression,
laughter,
causing
warned
them
them
to
to
about
pause
Janet's
and stare at
changed
me
condition,
incredulously.
hinting that
Olivia
seeing her might
questioned
be
why I was
distressing.
laughing.
I
and I
expressed
retorted,
that I was
asking
past
her
caring
why
about
she
her
let the old
appearance
man take
or what
advantage
she had
of her
gone
every
through
week.
since they took her.
My
And I
laughter
walked toward the
intensified,
open door,
and they froze.
Stopping at
With
the door,
Olivia's
I
eyes
inquired if
widening
she
as
was
Jack
on
flushed
medication
with
now.
rage. In
Carlos
response to
replied that
Jack's
she
anger,
wasn't,
he
but
spat out,
admitted she
calling
probably
me a
wished
scoundrel
she were.
and instructing me
He
to
claimed
get out of
to
his
have kept
office
her
and his
clean and
company
very
before he
conscious
had
all the
boys
time,
drag me
asserting
out by
that
my
she was
ears.
now a broken woman,
Chuckling
and well
I
trained
exited,
for her new life.
collecting the last of
We
my
both
belongings
entered a
from my
well-lit
office.
room where Janet was
Still
tied to a
laughing to
chair in the
myself,
center.
I arrived
I
home,
circled her,
unloaded
standing
the back
directly
seats,
in front,
opened the trunk,
despite being
and
inches
entered the
apart.
house. She remained
Surveying
silent,
the rooms,
her gaze
I
beyond my
pondered
shoulder,
what to take with me.
lacking the sparkle and
Retrieving
vitality
a
in
few
her
Romero
eyes.
Brito artworks,
I addressed
I wrapped
Janet,
them in plastic,
expressing
found
that
in
for
the
the
garage,
rest of her life
and loaded them
she
into
would
my
remember
car.
bringing misery
I
upon
went around
herself.
the house collecting
I
various
recounted
items,
enduring
then
her
emptied
mood
my
swings
wardrobe
and cold
upstairs.
attitude,
I
emphasizing
secured
that
all my
her
important
infidelity
paperwork,
and the disrespect
including the
she
girl's
and her
birth
lover
certificates,
showed,
were
and my wedding
intolerable.
certificate. From the
I
safe,
asserted that she would spend the rest of her
utilizing a
life
loft
paying
ladder,
for her
I
infidelity,
retrieved my old
mentioning that
belongings,
Robert had
including
already
my
paid his
degree
debt to
and
me.
family photos.
Speaking slowly,
In the master
I
bedroom,
wanted her to understand
gathered
that
all
it
the
was me
jewelry
who
I had
brought her
gifted
and her
Holly
lover
over
to
the
justice.
years, totaling
Despite
over
having once loved her,
£10,000 in value.
I conveyed my
I
current
also took
loathing
all the
towards her.
handbags, shoes,
I informed
and
her that
expensive
Carlos
coats I had
assured me
purchased.
she would be
In
well
fact,
taken care
the
of
entire
where she was
wardrobe
being
was
sent,
my acquisition,
as good care
so
as
I
they
claimed it
provide
all.
for their best horses
Given
and
my
cattle.
meticulous record
I stood for a moment
insurance
longer,
purposes,
observing
it
a
would prove
tear
beneficial
forming
when
in
selling
Janet's
everything.
It was
After
the
finishing
only
packing,
acknowledgement I received
realized I'd
before
need a
turning
TV,
and
so I
walking
grabbed
out.
that along with my movie
The
collection
Ford sedan
and the
returned me
Blu-ray
to St.
player.
Peter S.
By
where
now,
I went inside.
my car was too full.
As the 11
I
o'clock
decided
mass
to ditch
ended,
all of Holly's
I left the
clothes
church and
a
drove
few
straight
other
home.
unnecessary
A
items,
hard knot inside
including
my gut
some of my old
needed
clothes.
drowning with some Jim
Anumi
Beam.
would need a new
It's
wardrobe.
been 3 years
and the
since I
girls
last
would
saw
gladly
Janet.
help me out.
I've almost forgotten her
I
completely,
gathered the best
with
pictures
no
of me
traces
and the
in my
girls
life.
and packed
I
them
sold
in
the house
car.
we lived in at her
No real
disappearance.
rush, since
Dr.
Holly wouldn't be
Bacton's
back
cases
until
are now
after
in the
2
cold case
p.m.
file.
Took a
I
moment
spend
for a
more
cup
time
of
with
tea.
Carmine at the Sweet
A
Kitty
must-have.
Cat Lounge.
I believe it's
I've
in the
sampled
Magna
all the
Carta,
offerings of that
called the
sweet
TV
young
company,
stripper
and
on more than
canceled
one
the
occasion.
satellite phone and
Marriage
internet.
is out of the question.
Also contacted
My
British
5
Gas
years with
and Southern
Janet
Water
convinced me
to
that
cancel
women are more
utilities.
trouble than they
It
are
would take a
worth
few
once you
days,
marry them.
but I didn't care.
My parents were right
Returned
about
to the
regretting
bedroom
my
and sat on the
involvement
bed
with Janet.
when I noticed something
Children
that sparked
should listen
an idea,
to their parents'
one that
advice,
scared
though
even
they
me.
rarely do.
Holly's wedding
I later
dress
found out
sat
Amanda
at the top of
Stoccata
the
sent me
wardrobe
the email.
in a dusty old box.
She was Robert
She
Tolson's
loved
lover
it,
before he dumped her
probably
for
more
Janet.
than me.
I never
Took
thanked
it
her for
down
the email,
and found our wedding
nor did I
album
discover
among
how
the
she
box
obtained
of
those
photographs
photos
on
of
the
Robert
bed.
and Janet.
Grabbed the
I
duvet
guess she got
cover,
her revenge the
gathered
same time
everything,
I did.
and headed to the garden.
There's something written about the
Dumped
wrath of a
everything
woman
into a pile,
scorned.
including